I never believed in ghosts. Not really. I was a practical person raised in a logical home where things made sense and the supernatural was just something you saw in movies. But everything changed on a rainy Thursday night. That was the first time I felt it, the cold, unexplainable presence that would become part of my life. I had just moved into a new apartment in Portland, Oregon. It was nothing special, a small one-bedroom on the third floor of an aging brick building. The rent was cheap, which should have been my first red flag. But I was excited to finally live on my own. That first night, as I was unpacking boxes, I heard what sounded like footsteps above me. Slow, deliberate steps pacing from one end of the ceiling to the other. I didn't think much of it, maybe the upstairs neighbor was just walking around. But when I asked the building manager the next day, she looked confused and told me there was no one living above me. The fourth floor had been vacant for months. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe she was mistaken. Maybe she just didn't want to admit there were squatters. But that night, the footsteps returned, only this time they weren't above me. They were inside my apartment. At exactly 2:13 a.m., I was woken by the sound of something moving in my kitchen. A chair scraped against the floor. I held my breath and sat up in bed, straining to listen. Another sound, the unmistakable click of a light switch. I peeked out of my bedroom door. The kitchen light was on. I knew I had turned it off before going to sleep. I checked every corner of the apartment, holding a baseball bat in my shaking hands. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. The front door was still locked. The windows were shut. I should have called the police, but what would I say? That I was being haunted? The days that followed were filled with little moments that chipped away at my doubt. Lights flickering when I walked by. My keys disappearing only to be found in the fridge. A cold draft blowing through the apartment with no open windows. Once, I found all my picture frames on the floor, not shattered, but neatly lined up side by side. That one chilled me to the bone. Still, I tried to stay rational. I Googled weird things in old apartments and blamed it all on faulty wiring or settling pipes. I even bought a humidifier, thinking dry air was messing with my head. But deep down, I was starting to feel something I hadn't felt since childhood, fear of the dark. One night, I stayed late at the office just to avoid going home. When I finally got back around 11 p.m., the hallway outside my apartment was ice cold. I could see my breath in the air. As I fumbled with my keys, I felt someone behind me. I spun around. No one. But I swear I heard breathing. Slow, raspy breathing right next to my ear. I rushed inside and slammed the door behind me. That night, I slept with the lights on for the first time since I was 12. I started talking to my friends about it, trying to sound casual. Hey, have you ever felt like something was watching you? Most of them laughed. Couple gave me weird looks. Only my friend Cassie took me seriously. You should get out of there, she said. Just in case. Energy like that, it can attach to people. That word stuck with me, attach. What if it wasn't the apartment? What if it was following me? A week later, I went to stay at my parents' house for the weekend. I didn't tell them why, just said I needed a break. But even there, in the comfort of my childhood bedroom, it found me. I woke up to the sound of my closet door creaking open. I froze, staring at the darkness behind the door. Then I saw it, just for a second. A shadow leaning out, almost curious, before retreating again. The ghost, whatever it was, had followed me. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just a haunting. It was a presence. And it wasn't tied to a place. It was tied to me. After that weekend at my parents' house, everything changed. I couldn't pretend anymore. The signs weren't just random coincidences or tricks of the mind. Something was attached to me. Something I couldn't explain or escape. When I returned to my apartment, it felt different. Not just creepy, alive. As if the very walls were watching me. The temperature in my place was always colder than outside. Even when I cranked up the heat. I started hearing faint whispers when I was alone. They were too quiet to make out, but they sounded like they were coming from right behind me. One night, as I was brushing my teeth, I noticed something in the mirror. My reflection was delayed, just for a second. I moved my hand, and my reflection lagged behind. Then it smiled, but I didn't. I spun around, heart pounding, but there was nothing behind me. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. At 3:17 a.m., I felt the pressure again. Like someone was sitting on my chest. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My mouth opened to scream, but no sound came out. My eyes darted around the room and then I saw it. A pale face hovering just inches above mine. Hollow black eyes? A mouth that was slowly opening wider and wider as if it wanted to suck the breath from my lungs. I passed out from sheer panic. When I woke up the next morning, my chest was sore and I had long, red scratches running down my ribcage. Not shallow, playful scratches. Deep ones. Like claws. I stood in front of the mirror and stared at myself. This was real. Something was hurting me while I slept. I tried to tell my coworker Lisa during lunch that day. I thought maybe talking it out would help. She looked at me like I'd gone insane. Are you sure you're not just dreaming? Maybe you should take some time off. You look not well. I didn't blame her. I barely recognized myself. I had dark circles under my eyes from not sleeping. I jumped at every sound. I flinched when someone touched me. My hands were constantly trembling. Later that week, I found my closet door wide open again when I got home. Even though I always kept it shut. All my clothes were thrown to the floor, but nothing was missing. It was like someone had searched through my things, or left a message. I can get to you whenever I want. I started recording myself while I slept, desperate to get some kind of proof. For 2 nights, the footage showed nothing, just me tossing and turning. But on the 3rd night, I caught something. At exactly 2:43 a.m., the video showed my bedroom door creak open, slowly. Then, a shadow moved across the floor. Tall, thin, and twitchy, like it wasn't walking but gliding. It hovered over me, bent down, and then the footage cut to static. When it came back, the shadow was gone. I showed the clip to Cassie, the only person who still took me seriously. She watched in silence, eyes wide. This thing isn't haunting your apartment," she whispered. "It's haunting you." I knew she was right. The worst part was that I started hearing it during the day too. At the office. In grocery stores. Even while driving. Once, while stopped at a red light, I saw something in my rearview mirror. A face. In the back seat. I turned around and there was nothing. But I nearly crashed the car from how badly I was shaking. I began to avoid mirrors. I started sleeping during the day and staying awake all night. But it didn't matter. No matter what I did, no matter where I went, the thing found me. My doctor prescribed sleeping pills. I didn't take them. I was afraid to fall asleep. Afraid that one night I wouldn't wake up. This thing didn't want to scare me anymore. It wanted to wear me down. Break me. Maybe even replace me. I knew something was wrong with me. But it wasn't in my mind. It was something attached to my soul and it was getting stronger. The longer the ghost stayed with me, the more it learned about me, my fears, my habits, my weaknesses. And the more I learned something equally terrifying, it didn't matter where I went. I couldn't outrun it. One morning, after another sleepless night, I made a sudden decision. I needed to get out. To go anywhere else. Maybe putting some distance between myself and the apartment would give me peace of mind. I called in sick to work, packed a bag, and drove south with no clear destination, just away. I ended up in a small coastal town in Northern California. I rented a room at a quiet bed and breakfast near the cliffs, surrounded by pine trees and silence. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful. For the first time in weeks, I thought maybe this will work. That first night, I slept like the dead, no dreams, no waking up in a cold sweat, no voices or whispers. The clean air and soft bed felt like a miracle. I almost cried when I woke up and realized I'd slept through the night. I spent the next day walking along the coast, watching waves crash against rocks, breathing in the salty air. For the first time in weeks, I felt like a human being again. But peace is cruel when it's only temporary. On the second night, I was brushing my teeth when the light in the bathroom flickered once, then twice, then went out completely. The room went pitch black. I froze, and then breathing, that same heavy, rasping breath I'd heard in my apartment. Right behind me, I fumbled for the door, heart racing, and burst into the hallway. The light there worked fine. I turned around. The bathroom was empty, just as I'd left it. But I didn't go back inside. I slept with the lamp on that night, clutching my phone like a weapon. Around 3 a.m., the light dimmed suddenly. Not turned off, dimmed. Like something was draining the energy from the room. The air turned cold. My phone screen lit up without me touching it. A message appeared, typed by invisible hands. "You can't leave me." I dropped the phone. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. I didn't sleep another minute that night. The next morning, I left early before the sun even rose. I didn't care about the deposit or checking out. I just had to go. I drove for hours aimlessly until I ended up at Cassie's place. She opened the door and gasped when she saw me. "You look like hell," she said. "What happened?" "I tried to run," I whispered. "It followed me." She let me stay in her guest room. We didn't talk much. She didn't ask for details. But I could tell she believed me, maybe even feared for me. That night, I was almost afraid to fall asleep. But exhaustion eventually won. Around 3:10 a.m. I woke up to the sound of knocking. Slow. Deliberate. Knock. 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 It was coming from inside the closet. I sat up in bed, frozen. The door creaked open slowly. I didn't want to look, but my eyes were drawn to it. Inside the dark space, something moved. Then I heard Cassie scream from her room across the hall. I ran to her door, flung it open. She was sitting up in bed, pale and shaking. "I saw it," she whispered. "In my dream. It was in your skin." We left her apartment that night. Slept in the car like fugitives. But even in that cramped, cold space, I felt it. The weight. The presence. I thought moving would help. I thought distance would weaken it. But it didn't matter if I was in Portland or California or the middle of nowhere. It wasn't tied to my apartment. Or the city. Or a specific object. It was tied to me. Like a parasite. Like a shadow that had learned to move when I moved, breathe when I breathed. Running didn't help. Because you can't run from something that lives inside your life. They say the scariest ghosts are the ones you finally see. Up until then, you can always pretend maybe it's your mind playing tricks on you. Maybe it's stress or bad dreams. But once you see its face, there's no turning back. There's no more doubt. Only terror. The first time I saw it clearly was at Cassie's apartment. We had decided to sleep during the day and stay awake at night. It didn't make much difference. The haunting happened whenever it wanted. But doing the opposite of a normal routine somehow felt like we were taking control. We were wrong. That night, or rather that day, I was lying on the couch trying to fall asleep when I felt the coldness again. Not like a draft, it was heavy, sharp. It pressed against my skin like icy needles. My breath fogged in the air. Inside the apartment. Cassie had gone to take a shower. I was alone in the living room, eyes half closed, drifting, when I saw something in the far corner. At first, I thought it was just a shadow, but it was too solid, too still. It didn't move. It didn't make a sound, but I could feel it watching me. I sat up slowly, my skin prickling, and stared at it. My heart dropped. There was a figure in the corner of the room, crouched as if squatting low. Its body was impossibly thin, wrapped in what looked like ragged cloth or skin. But it was the face that stopped my heart. Pale, almost blue, hollow, sunken cheeks. Eyes so dark they looked like holes burned through the face. And a mouth slightly open, curved in something between a grin and a scream. It didn't move. It didn't blink. It just stayed there, watching. I tried to speak, to call out, but my voice failed. My mouth opened, but no sound came. The room grew darker. My vision tunneled. And then, in the reflection of the TV screen, I saw it stand up. It stretched slowly, like it hadn't moved in years. And then it started walking toward me. I shot up from the couch and screamed for Cassie. She ran out, soaking wet and wrapped in a towel. I pointed toward the corner, but it was empty. Completely. The shadow was gone. I fell to my knees, shaking. Cassie knelt beside me. "What did you see?" she asked. And all I could say was its face. I saw its face. From that day on, things escalated. It showed itself more frequently, never for long, never in full light. But enough that I couldn't deny it anymore. It was real, and it wanted me to know that it had always been real. Sometimes I'd wake up and find it sitting in the corner of my bedroom. Not moving. Just crouched there, silently watching. Other times it would show up in reflections in the TV, the mirror, even the glass of my phone. Always just behind me. I even caught it in a photo once. A selfie I took to send to Cassie. Behind my shoulder, in the background near the door, was a faint but unmistakable silhouette. When I zoomed in, I saw the pale face. Those eyes. That horrible, frozen expression. I deleted the photo immediately, but it was too late. I couldn't unsee it. The worst part? It started trying to communicate. On fogged mirrors, I'd find smeared words. "Stay mine alone." Once, I found a note stuck to my refrigerator. I hadn't written it. No one had been over. It simply said, "You look just like me." I didn't understand what it meant, but it chilled me to the bone. The ghost wasn't content just haunting anymore. It was studying me, mimicking me. I could feel it, always just behind me. Breathing when I breathed, whispering when I thought, standing in the corner of every room I entered. It was no longer hiding. It was waiting. waiting for what I didn't know. But every day it grew bolder, stronger, more present. I didn't just feel haunted anymore. I felt possessed. Cassie was the only one still standing beside me. Everyone else had pulled away. Friends, coworkers, even my own family. They either thought I was mentally unstable or too far gone to help. But Cassie stayed. And more than that, she began researching, digging for anything that could explain what was happening to me. We spent hours going through old books, online forums, paranormal websites, anything that mentioned hauntings or attachments. Most of it was vague and useless. But Cassie wouldn't give up. She believed there had to be a reason, a root. Then one night she found something. It was nearly 2 a.m. She had been scrolling through archived articles from local newspapers when she gasped. "Look at this," she said, turning the laptop toward me. It was a black and white photo of a young man, maybe in his 20s. Pale face, hollow eyes, and a grin that looked sickly familiar. I felt my blood freeze. "That's him," I whispered. "That's the thing I keep seeing." The article was dated back nearly 40 years. The headline read, "Man found dead in basement after months of isolation." The story explained that the man, Ethan Rowe, had been living alone, claiming he was being haunted. Neighbors reported hearing screams from his apartment at night, strange flickering lights, and violent banging sounds. The police broke in after not hearing from him for days. They found him dead, curled in a corner of the basement, his face twisted in terror. No signs of trauma. No clear cause of death. Cassie scrolled down and found a detail that made my stomach turn. He had carved the words "IT followed me" into the walls of his bedroom. "Where did this happen?" I asked, barely able to speak. Cassie paused. "Same building where you used to live. Before you moved here." I couldn't believe it. But at the same time it explained everything. I had inherited this thing. Somehow, by living in that space, maybe by staying in the same room, walking the same floors, I had drawn it to me. Maybe Ethan had once tried to escape, just like I had. Maybe he failed. Cassie kept reading. Some of the neighbors claimed Ethan wasn't the first either. They mentioned another tenant from years before, a woman who had disappeared without a trace. Same unit. "So this spirit," I said slowly, "it attaches itself to people. It waits, then moves on to the next." Cassie nodded. "It doesn't haunt the building, it haunts the person who notices it." Something about that hit me hard. I had noticed it. A long time ago. The small things, whispers, shadows, flickering lights. But I had dismissed them. And the ghost knew. That's when it chose me. Then Cassie found something else. "It's not just a ghost," she said. According to some of these articles, the victims would all describe the same thing, the face. The face watching them. But over time, they said it started to look more and more like their own. I felt sick. "That note on your fridge," she continued. "You look just like me. What if that wasn't a threat? What if it was a fact? What if the longer it stays with you, the more it becomes you?" My heart was thudding painfully in my chest. "That means it's trying to take over." Cassie nodded grimly. "That's what I think. It watches. It mimics. Then eventually it replaces." We sat in silence, the weight of that revelation settling between us like thick fog. I suddenly remembered the times I'd seen my reflection smile without me. Or the way it lagged behind. I remembered the voice that sometimes echoed my own. I had thought it was copying me. But maybe it was practicing. "Can we stop it?" I asked, desperate. Cassie looked at me. "I don't know. But if this thing has done it before, we need to find out how." That night, she made a plan to visit the old building where it all began. She wanted to find Ethan Rowe's old apartment. Maybe there was something left behind, a diary, a clue, anything. And for the first time in a long while, I felt a sliver of hope. If we could understand it, maybe we could end it. But deep down, I already knew it wouldn't let go without a fight. Returning to that building felt like walking into a nightmare I tried to leave behind. The moment we stepped out of the car, everything came rushing back, the coldness in the air, the way the shadows seemed longer here, heavier. The front door creaked as we pushed it open. Inside, it smelled of dust, rot, and something metallic. Like old blood. Cassie had managed to convince the new landlord to let us into my former apartment. She told him we were doing a personal investigation, and oddly, he didn't ask many questions. Maybe he'd heard the whispers. Maybe he didn't want to know. We walked up the stairs slowly, each step groaning under our feet. My stomach was in knots. The hallway hadn't changed. Same peeling wallpaper. Same flickering light near the stairwell. When we reached the door, Unit 3B, I froze. "I don't know if I can go in," I whispered. Cassie put a hand on my shoulder. You already lived here. We just need to take control of it now. She was right. I had to face this thing. We opened the door. The apartment was completely empty. No furniture. No sound. Just hollow space and memories. But the feeling was immediate, that pressure in the air like something was holding its breath. Watching. Cassie walked to the bedroom and flicked on her flashlight. We started searching every inch of the place, behind vents, under floorboards, inside closets. Hours passed. Dust covered our clothes. Still, we found nothing. Then Cassie noticed something. There's a hatch, she said, pointing to a corner of the bedroom floor, partially hidden under the carpet. I helped her pull the covering back. There was a small, square wooden door nailed shut. We pried it open with a crowbar, and the smell that came up was enough to make both of us gag. Mold, decay, and something sour. I think this leads to the basement, she said, shining her light down the narrow opening. A rusted metal ladder led into the darkness. We looked at each other, and without a word, started climbing down. The basement was colder than I remembered. The walls were made of damp stone, and water dripped from somewhere above. Felt like a tomb. Then we saw it. Carved into the far wall, in deep, angry slashes, were dozens of phrases. Some were half erased or buried under grime, but the ones we could read sent shivers down our spines. It wore my face. Don't look at the mirror. It's not a ghost, it's a shell. I'm still in here. Cassie's flashlight flickered, then steadied again. There was a wooden crate shoved into a dark corner. We opened it slowly. Inside, we found papers, torn journal pages, drawings, scraps of letters. The handwriting was messy, frenzied. It had to be Ethan Rose. One page stood out. It was a drawing of a face, a rough sketch, eyes black as ink, mouth twisted into a stretched, unnatural grin. The words written underneath chilled me. It becomes what you fear the most. It lives inside you until you forget you were ever someone else. Cassie turned to me, eyes wide. This isn't just a spirit. It's like a parasitic identity. It doesn't haunt people. It erases them. I backed away slowly, the room spinning. That's when I saw it. In the reflection of the basement window, a dark glass pane half covered in grime. Something stood behind me. Not Cassie. It looked like me, but older, paler, with dead eyes and a grin that didn't match my face. It raised a hand and waved. I spun around. No one was there. But the reflection stayed. I fell to the floor, gasping, unable to breathe. My vision blurred. I felt something pulling inside me, like a string unraveling from my chest. Cassie pulled me up, shouting my name. I could barely hear her. We have to go, I managed to whisper. It knows we're here. We scrambled out of the basement, up the ladder, and back into the apartment. But something had changed. The walls felt closer. The air heavier, and the lights, none of them worked. The door slammed shut behind us. Cassie tried the knob. It's locked. And from the darkness behind us, I heard a voice. You came back. The voice echoed through the apartment, deep and cold, yet it sounded eerily familiar. You came back. Cassie froze, her hands still gripping the locked doorknob. I stood in the center of the room, heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. That voice, it wasn't just familiar. It was mine. Did you hear that? I asked her. Cassie nodded slowly. That wasn't you, was it? Before I could answer, the lights flickered violently and then exploded in a shower of sparks. We were plunged into total darkness. Stay close, I whispered. I reached for her hand and we pressed our backs to the wall. In the silence, something moved across the floor, a soft scrape like bare feet dragging on wood. Cassie raised the flashlight and swept it across the room. The beam landed on the far corner. There it was. The thing. Me. But not just a copy. It was decaying. Like a version of me from another world, hollowed out and rotten. Its skin sagged, its eyes were sunken and black, and its smile was impossibly wide, as though its face had been stretched from the inside. Tilted its head, studying us. Then it spoke again. Everywhere you go, I go too. You see me because I am you. Cassie stepped forward, holding the flashlight between us and the creature. You're not him. You're a parasite. The thing didn't blink. I've always been here, even when he didn't notice. I felt it again, that pull inside me. A tug behind the eyes, behind the ribs, like something trying to crawl out of me. Or maybe crawl in. Cassie grabbed my arm. Don't listen to it. That's what it wants. To confuse you, to replace you. I'm already inside, the thing whispered. I fell to my knees, my vision blurring. My ears filled with a high-pitched screech. My own voice, dozens of copies of it, echoed in my head, laughing, crying, begging. Suddenly, I wasn't in the apartment anymore. I was standing in a hallway of mirrors, infinite reflections stretching in every direction. But none of them were mine. Every reflection was different. Each version of me looked a little more distorted, a little more monstrous. Some grinned, some wept, some just stood silently, eyes black, hands pressed against the glass as if trapped. I walked slowly, watching as the reflections shifted. And then I saw one that was perfect. A mirror that looked normal. I stepped closer. And the reflection didn't move. I raised my hand. It stayed still. I tilted my head. Nothing. It stared at me, its eyes empty. Then slowly, its lips moved. I'm real now. I screamed and slammed my fist into the mirror, and just like that, I was back in the apartment. Cassie was shaking me, tears running down her face. Stay with me. Don't let it take you. The figure was gone. But I didn't feel relief. I felt hollow, like something had been peeled away. I looked at my hands. They didn't feel like mine. I ran to the mirror in the hallway, flipped on the flashlight, and looked into it. My face stared back. But something was off. My eyes didn't look like they used to. They were just a bit too dark. My smile, when I forced one, didn't quite reach the corners. It had started. Cassie looked over my shoulder. It's not you anymore. I turned to her, terrified. Then who am I? She held my face gently, tears in her eyes. You're still in there. We can fight this. But for how long? I whispered. She didn't answer. That night, we escaped the apartment. I don't remember how, just that we ran. Somehow, the front door opened when we needed it to, and we didn't look back. But things weren't the same after that. Every reflection made me pause. Every shadow made me jump. I could feel it, not beside me anymore, but within, breathing with me, watching from behind my eyes. Cassie researched possession cases. We tried rituals, cleansings, exorcisms, but nothing worked. I wasn't haunted anymore. I was becoming the ghost. And the scariest part? Some nights I catch myself grinning for no reason. And I don't remember why. It's been months since that night in the apartment. Cassie and I moved far away, changed our numbers, even changed our appearance. Anything to outrun the thing that had infected my life. But it didn't matter. Because you can't run from something that lives inside you. At first, it was small things, forgetting what I said 5 minutes ago, misplacing objects I was sure I hadn't touched. Then came the voices again. But this time, they weren't outside. They were within me. Cassie never left my side. She slept with the lights on, kept a mirror covered in every room, and watched me constantly. Every day, she asked me questions only I would know the answers to. I passed most of them. But not all. I was slipping. Becoming someone else. Or something else. One night, she sat me down across from her, held my hands, and said softly, "You have to tell me if you stop being you." I tried to laugh, but my throat caught. How would I even know? She didn't smile. That's what terrifies me. A week later, I found her crying in the bathroom. When I asked why, she wouldn't look at me. She just whispered, "Your reflection. It smiled before you did." That was when we realized it wasn't just haunting me anymore. It was winning. Cassie began to prepare for the worst. She contacted a priest who specialized in identity entities. Whatever that meant. He told her that if a spirit consumes enough of a person's essence, it doesn't need to possess them. It simply becomes them. It overwrites their memories, their instincts, their soul. "I don't know how much of me is left," I told her one night. "You're still you," she said. "If you weren't, you wouldn't be scared." But I was scared. More than scared, I was losing. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw it smiling as me. Not behind me, not beside me. As me. One day, I made a decision. I told Cassie I wanted to confront it one last time. Not through rituals or running, but through acceptance. I needed to look it in the eye and understand what it wanted. We went to a remote cabin, no distractions, no mirrors, no electronics. Just me, Cassie, and a single full-length mirror we covered with a blanket. The first 2 days were quiet. Too quiet. I felt it lurking, waiting. On the third night, I uncovered the mirror. And there I was. Except, not. My reflection blinked a moment after I did. It smiled when I frowned. It stood still when I moved. Then it spoke. "I'm tired of hiding. I should have screamed. I didn't. I just stared. Why me? I asked. The reflection tilted its head. Because you saw me. That's all it takes. A single glance. A moment of belief. And then, I exist. It stepped forward, though I hadn't moved. You fed me with fear. You gave me a shape. Now you want to take it back. I nodded. Yes. It laughed. Then you'll have to earn it. In that moment, I understood what it meant. I wasn't fighting a ghost. I was fighting myself. The part of me that gave in, that broke down, that let it in. The weak part. The shadow self. I stood tall and stared into its eyes. I'm not afraid anymore, I said. Its grin faltered. I know who I am. It took a step back. I'm not you. You're just the fear I left behind. The mirror cracked. A long, splitting fracture ran down the middle. My reflection wavered, blurred, then twisted into something unrecognizable, all jagged smiles and hollow eyes, before it shattered. I fell to the floor. Cassie ran to me, shouting my name. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Everything went black. When I woke up, the mirror was gone. Just shards scattered across the floor. Cassie held me tight, whispering, "You're back? I see you. It's really you." I believed her. Mostly. But even now, some nights when I pass by a dark window, I see something move just a second too late. A flicker. A shadow. Sometimes I smile and wonder, is this still me? Or is it still watching, waiting for me to forget who I am again?